Welcome to Java. Thank you kindly for joining me. It's April 25th, 2025, and it is Friday. So I'm hoping everyone has a green day or at least a good day going into your weekend. Now, we will address the question of whether happy days truly are here again. We are in a severely erratic, volatile, and unpredictable market as it is headline driven, and the only thing that we can expect is more unexpected and more volatility. So, we'll talk a bit about the trade wars that are going on right now as we see in the seaports, some of the after effects of this, and what is going on in the market behind it. So, let's get started. Fear Greed meter is up significantly to 33 right now. This means that there are quite a few retailers that have decided to come into this market. They see the easy money ahead. This is mostly because of the Federal Reserve now. Daily Driver is agreed on this easy money of cutting rates forward. Now, we had Waller come out saying that we will see an increase in unemployment along with an increase in prices, which is actually the worst of all scenarios. However, after that, he said that rate cuts would then be in order. So that is the only part that this market needed to hear, and it skyrocketed. So with all of this, the Dow, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq all up. The VIX dropped quite a bit, and gold had a pullback. So with all of this, then we got the US jobless claims. They perhaps knew this ahead of time. They did tick up, but they're saying they were in line with forecasts, so that's all okay. So while what Waller is saying sounds like an awful scenario forward, all we have to know is that the Fed is going to jump in and save us, start printing, and then we'll have lots of easy money ahead. So that's all the markets heard yesterday. Now I want to speak about this a little bit because while they were green, they did pull back with gold. The futures at the moment are kind of dropping and looking a bit weak, mixed. So, as I said, probably a very volatile day. We'll also take a look at the calendar, and we've got oil down. Now, this is on some other things that have happened on the geopolitical risk and the physical wars, if you will. Now, we had China granting some tariff exemptions for US imports as their trade war bites, is the headline. Now, why I've got without talks is because there seems to be a very different opinion going on from the White House between them and China as to whether they're having any talks going on. So China says he can't believe anything coming out of the White House. And the White House is saying that they have had meetings as recently, rather, as this morning. So they said they might disclose with who. There's got to be something going on because otherwise they would not have rolled back these tariff exemptions. They do also have plans on their versions of quantitative easing to kind of alleviate where this has hit them. They are very quietly doing some of these things in the background and not admitting it out loud. So a couple of tickers to watch today. This one is Broadcom, one of the chip sectors, Apple. We'll talk about why, and Tesla. So, little reminder here, particularly if you're new to this channel, currency exists as measure of control. Just want to keep that at the forefront. It's not a good way to hold wealth in the long term. That's not what wealthy people do. So, 10-year yield down a slight bit. With all of this, we've got some money coming back into not just treasuries, but also the relative strength of the dollar has increased. So people investing in the United States, again, pulling back from some of the other markets. Now, Europe had quite a good market. Asia was mixed in the overnight. So we're watching this capital flow come a small amount, mind you. However, there is a bit of currency flowing back into United States dollar-denominated assets. Now, with this, money going into the treasuries with the 10-year yield going down is a little bit of a safe haven unless it's the Fed buying. So we've also got cryptocurrencies are up still at quite a strong point. So Bitcoin with the breakout and we'll see if it continues above that, setting that as a support point. A few specific things. First off, with the calendar, we're getting consumer sentiment for the final. And actually, for next Monday, there's really not too much planned. So if you're going into the weekend, just understanding there's not going to be much happening with Monday either. They will have their typical grind out toward the end of the day for options if they can to close out those that are in. Now, few of the ones why I mentioned Tesla, it had quite a good day yesterday. They are talking about rolling out their free full self-driving transfers on all US models because they had poor sales. But with this and with the talk about Elon going back into the company a bit more, their shares of that company had a very good day yesterday. Now we have got Apple talking about sourcing all United States iPhones from India in a pivot away from China. So now that India has made good talks with the United States, Apple's redesigning where they're getting their stuff from and therefore avoiding a lot of massive price increases, which is what people were concerned about, that would cut their sales and hurt their stocks later. Now, in another flip, we've got Trump ordering speedier permits for deep sea mineral projects. Now, what do we find in deep sea mineral projects? This is an effort to bolster the supply of critical resources, in particular, as it says here, rare earths. So these are all of the ones that China had a stranglehold on. So he's trying to speed these up as well as with Ukraine. And there's more things that have been happening there. Now, we've got Meta, Facebook owner, also laid off an unspecified number of employees at its Reality Labs division. So are they just moving to artificial intelligence? We don't know, because these are all of the ones that go into the augmented realities and spatial. So we'll see what happens with that, but that should hit their stock a bit this morning, I would think. We've got, although investors could look at that as cutting costs and as a positive. So really have to watch these headlines. We had another one come out. It's not necessarily market related exactly. They're talking about inflation. Groceries already too expensive. Waiting until RFK Jr.'s food dye ban hits. Well, you have to think about this. Why is it so expensive to eat real food that doesn't have the poisons in it? And it's because this is cheap and this is what they want you to eat, all of these poisons that are in the food. So if you want to be against this because it would cause a bit of inflation in food, I think there's other factors there, but it is true, could hurt the lower end a bit. So a bit of both. But do you think it's ethical to continue to offer these poisons just because it's cheaper? I'd like to hear your opinion in the comments if you would. So we had, and I spoke about this a bit yesterday, but the Fed Reserve Board announcing the withdrawal of guidance of banks related to crypto asset and dollar token activities. Now, a lot of people are excited about this because it thinks they can list Bitcoin, which, while that is true, that is not the main point of this. They are moving to stable coins, and stable coins are in effect CBDC. So the flip side of this is actual cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is independently owned. The concern is that the supply on exchanges is falling due to public company purchases, and this is in accordance with Fidelity. Now, Bitcoin reserves on the exchanges has fallen to the lowest level since November 2018, and there are a couple of main holders. Now, I find this interesting. Everyone talks about, used to be MicroStrategy, now it's just Strategy, holding 538,200 Bitcoin. But who really owns more is BlackRock, 585,000. So between the two, over 1 million. And there's only ever going to be 21 million, with 1 million taken out. So less than 19 million for everybody else, including hedge funds. Now, the interesting factor about that is there was a bit of a deep dive done as to whether there could be enough manipulation if they owned enough. And it just doesn't work that way. they would have to do what's called a hard fork, and there would be a massive loss of confidence, and they would really lose out on their entire investment. So kind of structured against that. Um, we also had 21 Capital is the name of the company, but this one is led by Jack Mallers. He's led by Strike. We spoke about this last night at the cryptocurrency conference. If you want to hear about more of this, but the supporters behind him is, as he's saying, it's a superior vehicle for investors seeking capital efficient Bitcoin exposure. So you're getting to these links, stable coins that are not Bitcoin. So it's the same thing as gold with ETFs. It's not the same thing. If you've got the opportunity, you can buy it in fractions. You can buy as little as, $1 or $2 worth of Bitcoin if you're so inclined. I would suggest a little more, but not financial advice. But really, this is going to be loaded up on. So a few other things I'd like to cover prior to the weekend beginning. We've got our trading days in the weekend. So the war in Ukraine, I want to go over this just slightly. Trump is talking to Putin about stopping attacks in Ukraine because last night there was a couple of massive attacks while they're supposedly talking about peace. Now we've got Witkoff from the United States arriving in Moscow for peace talks with the Kremlin. So we'll see how that happens. Just so happened that at the same time that his plane landed there, a senior military officer, in fact, it was a Russian major general, was killed in a car IED blast in the Moscow region. And this, we'll see how this all hits. But all in all, Russia is ready for a deal with US on Ukraine. And this is from Lavrov. Now, he's one of the larger outspoken ones. And if he says that, he's quite well spoken for Russia about the negotiations. So a couple of other things. Houthi rebels have shot down 7 US Reaper drones. Now, this is not exactly new news. However, $200 million worth in recent weeks. So massive amounts being spent on this. So even though these monies are not going towards the war in Ukraine directly, they are going to continue. War is going to continue. There's been a larger move through defense stocks of late. They did have a bit of a drop with these peace talks, could have another bit of a drop and a pullback, or looking for some opportunities there if you're so inclined with the defense stocks. Personally, not a good one for me, but just as something else opening up. We also have between the India-Pakistan issues, now it's come out that Pakistan did dirty work for the West, talking about the US and UK being admitted openly by their defense minister, saying that they were trying to look for terrorist groups. And so they had them basically, as he says, doing their dirty work. So kind of an interesting point there. We can expect the inflation to continue. The Fed is already looking forward to the rate cuts. Seems that there was another chat as well between the Federal Reserve and the administration, because now they are playing along again, at least for the surface. They've had what they need to do. So with all of this, I wish you a great trading day, wonderful weekend ahead, and until I see you again, my friends, stay free.